Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead. World Antimicrobial Resistance Awareness Week 2025 is November 18th through 24th. The theme of this week is that of Act Now, Protect Our Present, Secure Our Future. The International Poultry Council is leading the food animal sector globally in addressing antimicrobial resistance, and they're here joining us today with some exciting news to show regarding their global efforts on stewardship. So joining us is Nicolo Cinotti, Secretary General, International Poultry Council, and Dennis Erpelding, Science and Trade Advisor for the International Poultry Council. Welcome to you both. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Sarah. Looking forward to the discussion.
Before we get into the session, a reminder that if you have any questions, feel free to post those there in the chat area on the right-hand side of your screen. If you're joining us from social media, simply post your questions directly in those channels. So, Nicolo, let's start with you. Let's have you provide a brief introduction to the International Poultry Council and its work in the antimicrobial resistance area, and how IPC work is really related to the theme that we're talking about here today regarding Antimicrobial Awareness Week.
Thank you so much for the question, Sarah. So the International Poultry Council is the global poultry meat producer association. Our member represents about 80% of the global poultry meat production and 95% of the global poultry meat trade. IPC has been engaged in addressing antimicrobial resistance for a year through our collaboration with organizations such as the World Organization for Animal Health and working on stewardship principle and best practices. So specific to the theme, IPC members' action now are protecting our present thanks to the work that has been done following the UN high-level panel of expert political declaration on AMR in 2016 and seeking to avoid antimicrobial use. Yet we recognize we need to ensure that when they're needed, they are used responsibly for purposes of animal welfare and animal health, thus securing our future as this approach minimizes resistance development.
So then what are some of the current challenges around antimicrobial resistance, and how can the private sector really come to be involved in helping to overcome some of these challenges?
So probably the biggest challenge that we are facing today are achieving global alignment. This global alignment might be on goals, on definition, on metrics for antimicrobial use, and on stewardship that are implemented on the field. So countries and sector often have different end goals and variation in regulatory frameworks and metric used, and that is creating huge issues in aligning globally. So ultimately, AMR is a shared problem, but the capacity to address it differs widely across countries. So closing the gap between countries and regions will be essential for a long-term progress. As per the private sector, well, I can speak, of course, on behalf of the poultry meat private sector. This sector has a unique ability to innovate, to move quickly thanks to its vertical integration, and to implement solutions at scale. So industry can demonstrate what practical, responsible antimicrobial use looks like on a farm on an everyday basis. So the private sector can lead by the example by putting its know-how for the public sector to use and showing that stewardship is achievable, scalable to secure our future.
So Dennis, can you provide us a highlight of IPCC's stewardship principles and best practices? And I believe we have a couple slides here to walk folks through that.
Yes, Sarah, delighted to do that. IPC started back in 2017 to look at how they could be more proactive in addressing antimicrobial resistance. It's actually developed, as referenced on the screen here, the IPC Antimicrobial Use Stewardship Principles. As we look at these principles, there's really four key components. The first is the risk analysis based principle on stewardship for best practices. So as they're used throughout all the production phases, basically understanding like when, why, which, and how much antimicrobials are used. The second principle is to reduce the need for use by applying management practices around biosecurity, housing, nutrition, and hygiene, and preventive measures. The third principle is that antimicrobials will only be used in compliance with national authorizations, recognizing this varies globally. Then the fourth principle is really those that are the highest priority critically important for human medicine would only be used for therapeutic purposes under supervising veterinarians' diagnosis and oversight. So the industry proactively developed these back in 2017, and we'll reference here briefly of how we're utilizing those in industry today. The second part then is the best practices guidance to reduce the need for antibiotic use in poultry production. And these were developed back in 2019. These really guide practices at the farm level, so dealing with stocksmanship and training, biosecurity, environment, hygiene, flock health and welfare programs, the stewardship principles that we just referenced, minimizing, avoiding growth motion, ultimately, importantly, data collection. So these are the efforts the industry has done proactively to say, how do we as an industry recognize this as a concern? How do we be proactive, and what practices we can do at the farm level in addressing antimicrobial resistance and thus antimicrobial use?
So, Nicolo, you we teased at the front of this that you had some exciting news to share regarding IPC global stewardship efforts. Fill us in. What's going on?
Thanks. That's a wonderful question. And today we are excited and thankful to announce that via private sector leadership endorsing and adopting antimicrobial US stewardship principles, we have now 42 organizations support. We have 42 endorsers of IPC antimicrobial stewardship, reaching over 150 countries in the world and representing nearly 50% of the global poultry meat production. All those 42 are spanning all sectors of poultry production, from small farms to large fully integrated systems, and from genetic to food services, so all across the value chain. So this incredible work was done under the Transform Project. Transform Project is a USAID-funded private sector project that served as a catalyst to build upon IPC stewardship principles and best practices. We want to emphasize the importance of collaboration between the public and the private sector to leverage our role. And I want to note the role of organizations such as WOA, the World Organization for Animal Health, and the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization at the United Nations, in the private-public partnership, which is a key component in the success in fighting against AMR.
Quite an impressive list of companies and organizations there. So, Dennis, you've worked in antimicrobial resistance area for decades. What are some of the key learnings that you've come away with from that?
Yes, sir. I've had a chance to be involved in this process, both in the legislative, regulatory, and with food companies processes. I think the first one I would say is important that we take a holistic systems approach and we take a science-based approach. We recognize the science has really stayed the same, actually, when we think about the past decade. So how do we be consistent with that science? Take that science-based approach. The second one is we think about the regulatory process, and what we're doing, and this is part of the IPC stewardship principles, is really that we utilize a full risk analysis process. So that includes a risk assessment, so identify the hazard, risk management, and risk communication. And then make sure we use that to help us prioritize the allocation of resources globally, whether that's through the government resources or the private sector industry resources. The third one is focus on those areas that we can really control and influence. So for IPC, is think about our members. That's what we actually do at the farm level. So we recognize a broader scope of human, animal, and the environment, but yet our primary focus where we can really have the impact is what we do at the farm level. So as you look at our stewardship principles, our best practices, we really focus on what we're doing at the farm level. Then the fourth point I would make is that action really happens at the farm level. And this is where IPC, through its members, can have real impact. I think as we look at the last decades, as we've been involved in addressing antimicrobial resistance, we've learned in the poultry sector, actually we can minimize and almost avoid use in many situations relative to the production needs. So if we can have the right best practices, that right environment, the right nutrition and health management, we're actually a situation, if you think about medically important antibiotics, where you don't use any, and of those that we do need to use, as reference, we use them only responsibly when needed. So I would think those would be the core things, is that science-based approach, a true risk analysis, using the full risk analysis, coming back to a focus and where we can really have impact in that process.
So, Nicolo, key takeaways you want to leave our audience with here today. What do you want to have them remember from this discussion, your key points?
So I think that the key point is that in fighting AMR, no one can be left aside. Governments, civil society, public health, animal health, and particularly not the private sector. As Dennis reminded, we are those boots on the ground on a daily basis. So everyone need to understand and respect each other's role. We need to leverage our role, find the best way to do that, and the alignment at global level. I think those are the key messages that I want to send out. As IPC, we have been acting years ago, we are acting now, we are protecting our future, but that can be done only through synergies with the public sector. So public-private partnership will play an increasingly important role in the future.
Dennis, what about you? Key takeaways?
I would just add, and I think it's really demonstrated by the announcement that Nicolo made. If we think about the 42 organizations reaching over 150 countries, representing nearly 50% of our global poultry meat production, it really shows what we can do when we act together. And also this comes into where we can align globally around what we're needing to do and ultimately have real impact at the farm level. So I think we're truly pleased that today we're able to note the global leadership by the private sector in addressing antimicrobial resistance. As we think about the World Antimicrobial Awareness Week, where we're trying to protect our current ones, we do that through our stewardship principles. Securing our future, we're doing that by minimizing, avoiding need to use. So truly delighted to see the private sector leadership. Also, very importantly, the collaboration that we have with government authorities on the international level, as well as a regional and national level. So the collaboration, as Nicholas mentioned, is so important, but we truly complement our global leaders in establishing this precedent on stewardship principles.
I want to thank you both for joining us here today, and thank you for sharing your insights into what IPC is doing to address antimicrobial resistance. It's very important, as you mentioned, that private-public sector alliance when it comes to addressing these concerns within the poultry sector and animal agriculture overall. So thank you both.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Likewise, we appreciate all of you in our audience who have tuned in. Until next time, for Feedstuffs, I'm Sarah Muirhead.